It's 15 hours GMT. Welcome to the Pulse, and we're live on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air. We're also live on Go TV channel 144 and DSTV channel 421. Coming up on the Pulse this afternoon, classroom activities at the Accra Girls Senior High School come to a halt as parents besiege the school to remove the wards from the facility after 6 students tested positive for coronavirus. Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament is asking government to take a second look at the reopening of schools in the face of the rising cases. Also on the Pulse, top officials of opposition National Democratic Congress in a crunch meeting to approve the running mate for flag bearer John Dramani Mahama. We'll take you live to the NDC headquarters shortly, but here is a news desk report. We'll bring you a news desk report also and also take you live to that place. We're live also on all our social media platforms. Please stay with us on the Pulse. I'm grateful that you joined us on the Pulse. In our very first story, classroom activities at the Accra Girls Senior High School have come to a halt as parents besieged the school earlier today to remove the wards from the facility. This comes after 6 students tested positive for coronavirus. There's heavy security presence at the school as some parents have trooped there to withdraw their children, and my colleague Maxwell Agbaba reports the students are agitating to be taken home by their parents.
Agitations here at the Accra Girls Senior High School, where some of the students here are demanding that they are released so they go home because they have heard news about the some of their colleagues who have reportedly tested positive for the coronavirus. Some of them are standing outside. They do not want to go to their classrooms. There were agitations earlier before we got here, but the police was actually called in to intervene in this matter. So some of them are still here. They are manning the gate, ensuring that these students who are agitated do not get out of the school compound. Yeah, I have a parent here with me.
Well, I'm here this morning to try to find out the situation, because last night we picked a feed that 6 students of Accra Girls have tested positive. And I know I have a ward here. I'm a concerned parent. We have a common platform for parents. Common platform for parents. And this is the case that when we had the situation, we try to speak or to pick information from the PT executives. What is happening to our wards here? The PT executives, nobody is talking. The chairman is not talking. The secretary, who's a teacher here, also refuses to talk. So definitely we need to come to the school and they try to speak to the school authorities as to the situation of our wards here. And when we came to the school authorities, nobody is prepared to talk. Like I said earlier, PT is not prepared to talk. Almost anybody in the Accra school, nobody is prepared to talk.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. You have a child here?
Yeah, I have a child here.
Okay.
Mohammed Umar.
Okay. So why are you here this morning?
Well, I just had information that the children in the school had a demonstration yesterday, that they are now more interested in staying there again, so they want to come home. That's why I rushed to come this morning to see what is actually going on. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So if have you tried reaching the school authorities, and what have they been telling you?
I have not yet gotten. And in fact, the day we brought the children, since then we have been receiving numerous informations about what is going on in the school. It's very bad.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I'm here. I've come to
that's why you're here.
Yeah. Okay. If the school will not continue, then I'll be ready to pick my daughter.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So one of the police officers wants to address the parents. Let's get closer and hear what he's going to tell the parents.
But now there's a situation, so the school should be addressing them.
No, don't record me. Don't record me.
No, he's not recording you.
Don't record me.
No, sure.
Take away.
This is a public.
Don't record me.
This is a public institution.
Well, at this point, the police officer who came in the Kotobabi police station patrol car is attacking one of the media people here
touch me, please.
He's attacking one of the media people here reporting from the Accra Girls Senior High School. There's a journalist who was recording with his recorder.
Good. The media should not record you. Whatever information you're giving here, the public deserves to hear it.
You're telling me I should be civilized. Are you civilized yourself? Mind your words. What do you mean that I'm civilized? Your language should be decent. What do you mean? You say you're media. Is that the way you talk? Telling me I should be civilized. You're telling me I should be civilized. You think somebody can be a journalist or what?
No, it's not referring to you.
What do you mean? You think the journalism is going to do? I'm not capable of doing it. I say journalism, I'm not capable of doing it. Let the language be decent. What do you mean? Stupid people are telling me I should be civilized.
Those are things from the Accra Girls Senior High School. The NDC minority says the Kufuor administration must prioritize the lives of our students currently in the school in the light of the increasing numbers of COVID-19 cases in the country, as well as reported cases of infections recorded among students in some schools. Joining me shortly is the ranking member on Parliament's Education Committee, Clement Apak, for more on this. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Apak. I'm grateful for your time on the polls.
You and good afternoon to leaders. In fact, I'm the deputy ranking member on the Committee of Parliament on Education, not the ranking member, for the sake of the record.
Grateful. The minority is calling on government to rescind its decision to allow students to go back to school and shut down the schools. Earlier, you also issued a statement on the same matter. Exactly what are your concerns?
Well, I think my concerns have been captured in the tape and the video that you have shown to accompany the story to do with parents trooping to the Accra Girls Senior High School to take their wards away from the school, and for good reason. The decision to reopen schools, many of us felt at the time, was not the best. But be as it may, government through the ministry and the Ghana Education Service had met with stakeholders, and a number of promises were made as a precondition to the reopening of schools. We now know, based on reports, that not only were many of the schools not even fumigated before students were allowed to arrive on campus, but even basic supplies like nose masks, like running water, like, if you like, sanitizers, were not even available. To even make matters worse, it was also the case that it was to be only teachers who were to teach on particular days who were expected to be on campus. The reason was to reduce the number of persons on campus at any particular time. But even the teacher unions have come out to complain that that directive, or if you like, that promise, has not been fulfilled. As we speak now, we have done our checks, and there are several schools in this country which have not yet received PPEs. To add salt to the injury that we are all facing, and the fact that, you know, this virus keeps increasing in terms of the case count, we now know that at least in the Accra Girls Senior High School, students have tested positive. Now, the question that we pose is this: is it not better for us to postpone the exams and allow for the students to go back to their parents till a time where conditions will be conducive for them to get back to school and study to write exams, than to continue this policy of having them on campus where they are getting infected, and indeed when they become sick, and I mean, God forbid, if they die, then what is the purpose of this exercise? Is it not better to have live wards, even if they become illiterate, than to have kids in school who may not even see the light of day?
Is it that you want the personal protective equipment and also the adherence to social distancing protocols, or you simply want the schools shut?
Well, I think what has happened in Accra Girls makes the case that the best option now is to postpone the exams. And I mean, we don't see any justification for Ghana and our government under President Akufo-Addo insisting that these students must go back to school and write exams this year. If you do your checks in, the sub-region, all the countries which participate in the West African Examinations Council examinations, they have all postponed it. And so we fail to understand the motive. If the motive is for the students to study and write their exams, and yet we are experiencing the increasing numbers across board, even government officials being infected, we now know that even the president has isolated himself. How can we then justify the continuous presence of our wars on these campuses when they don't even have the requisite PPEs to protect themselves? And now we know for a fact that they are being infected. So the best option is to postpone the exam. That then gives reason to close the schools down until such a time that we can all feel that there is safety and that we have this virus which is spiraling out of control, under control. Then we can talk about sending them back to school. As one parent told me, it's better to have an illiterate child than to have none at all.
I'm grateful for your time. Dr. Clement Apak is Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Education Committee, speaking about schools that needs to be shut down. Let's head to the NDC headquarters, where we understand the party leadership has approved the flag bearer's choice of running mate. Former Education Minister Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman now has the backing of the party's National Executive Committee and will be partnering John Dramani Mahama into the 2020 elections. Sami Jemfi has been addressing the media. Listen.
Consult us on his choice of running mates for the 2020 general elections. And that is in line with the constitution of the party, like I've already said. The consultation has taken place. Earlier, he had consulted members of the Council of Elders of the party who had given their support for his choice of running mates. At the NEC meeting we just had, there's been a unanimous approval of the National Executive Committee of the choice of running mate by the flag bearer. And so I can tell you that the running mate of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for the 2020 general election is Professor Nana Jane Agyeman. That choice has been approved unanimously by the party.
What does she bring to the table?
A statement.
Well, earlier we gauged the mood of the public on who they thought was fit to be running mate for John Dramani Mahama. Earlier, so many names had come up, including Professor Butchie and Alex Mould and others who were going to be nominated as running mate. Let's listen to what the public had to say.
You know, honest, sincere, matured Professor Nana Jane Agyeman will deliver victory for the NDC in the coming
What does she bring to the table?
I am telling you that
whoever that is chosen to partner JM will be somebody that can, in his absence, hold the fort, do everything possible so that at the end of the day, when that person who is chosen today and then the president of a tenure of office is over, that person can fit well in his shoes and work assiduously and to the betterment of this nation.
A lot of names have come up. Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman is not an exception. We've seen her credentials. We've seen the kind of work she has done with UCC. We've seen the kind of work she has done with the Education Ministry. We've seen all these things. But my question that I keep asking my own people is that Ghana, are we ready for a female vice president? If so, I'm not saying she's not qualified. She's more than qualified to occupy that position as the first female vice president of a country like Ghana. But as a country, Ghana, are we ready? Looking at the people who are involved, looking at the four names that have come on board, I am personally rooting for Dr. Nimoy Thompson.
Members of the NDC, we expect somebody that is competent enough to add to the candidature of our flag bearer, that is John Dramani Mahama. So we left to us, we don't care whoever is chosen. All we want to see or hear or know about is the competence level of the running mate. We expect somebody that will be a very good economist, because normally we have the vice president who is the chairperson for the economic management team, and we want somebody that has that background.
And still on your election headquarters, we'll take you live to the NDC headquarters shortly. But here is a news desk report capturing persons believed to be front runners in the race.
Long before the governing NPP selected its presidential candidate, John Mahama had been given the nod to lead the NDC in the 2020 polls. But the NPP would be the first to announce its complete ticket when President Akufo-Addo named Dr. Bawumia as his running mate.
My choice of running mate for the fourth time, the excellent, hard-working Vice President, Alhaji Muhammadu Bawumia. With your endorsement, the party will complete its presidential ticket, a feat that appears to elude some of our opponents. We have no such difficulty.
The NDC flag bearer, John Mahama, is reported to have held a series of meetings in the last few weeks to settle on his running mate.
I appreciate many characteristics about leaders generally, but three interwoven strands stand out. The first is keeping the vision in constant view.
Former Education Minister Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman is reported to be a front-runner.
My experience working closely with His Excellency John Mahama has led me to really respect these characteristics about him. As a result, I have come to appreciate him as a leader of humility and integrity.
The others are economist Dr. Nimoy Thompson, who previously headed the NDPC.
The cedi is an inherently weak currency, and I compare that to three other currencies, the Naira, the shilling of Kenya, and the South African rand.
The others are Dr. Kobena Dofo, Professor Kwesi Botwe, Alex Segbefia, Alex Mode, and others. The opposition party would certainly be looking at picking a candidate who can boost the party's drive to win the 2020 polls.
Head of Political Desk at JoyNews, Evans Mensah, joins me with more on this. And of course, you may be asking what this means for the NDC. And I put that straight to you, Evans. What does this mean for the NDC?
That is assuming that it's true that they've picked Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. I would say it is still unconfirmed until the party formally announces this. But if indeed that they have chosen her as in John Mahama has, and the party has agreed that the prof should be the running mate, it will be a major gamble. It's a major gamble going into an election such as this, because for me, I say, what is the single most important reason why the NDC is running for the 2020 election? So that they win elections.
Definitely.
So then you ask a follow-up question. Which ticket will be best suited to winning the elections? John Mahama is settled. And so if you're going to compliment John Mahama, the question is, who best to compliment John Mahama so the party wins elections? Now, to answer that question about whether Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, Prof, is the best person in this field of individuals who are vying for this particular role, is she the best person to help John Mahama and the NDC win the 2020 elections? To answer that question, you need to go back to 2016 and ask and analyze why the NDC lost the elections. The NDC lost the elections primarily, we know, based on the results, that a chunk of the traditional voters who show up for them on December to vote for them didn't show up. They didn't vote for them. For apathetic, they were apathetic towards the NDC, going out to vote, or they were not galvanized enough. The base wasn't galvanized enough. And so they lost the election, because historically, from 1992 to 2016, I mean, until before 2016, all the elections before then, the NDC had come into the game with almost a guaranteed 5 million votes. That didn't happen in 2016. So the key question to ask going forward, if that is your analysis, and again, Professor Kwesi Boche's report, when he went around the country touring and speaking to delegates, showed that the grassroots in 2016, the NDC base, the traditional base, were not as galvanized. They were disenchanted, they were disillusioned, and so a lot of them didn't turn out to vote. So coming to 2020, you want a ticket that could galvanize that base. Considering that John Mahama is unchanged, you definitely need somebody who will complement him and bring that galvanized feel to the NDC and get the base to the polls. The question is whether Jane can do that.
But some say the fact that she's a woman would do the magic. You don't think so?
The fact that is a woman, unfortunately, will not do the magic, because she's a woman, but the factors that the NDC's base, that's why I want to start. I'm not saying that is the only criteria for the NDC to win or prosecute a successful election. For me, it is the most important factor to consider, but there are others. But I want to focus, I'll come to the others, focus on that for a while. The fact that she's a woman, the base, they don't care about that, right? It don't matter if they think that she cannot galvanize. Is he known to the base? Is he somebody that you will consider, if you're an NDC foot soldier who had toiled and been in the trenches for a while, would you say, Prof. Opoku-Agyeman has paid her dues to the party? Is it somebody that you could say had been there and stood and sweated and toiled for the party? These two questions will tell you that people will not look at her and think immediately that this is a person who we identify with, who we could say had paid her real dues for the party. The fact that she's a woman will count for the 51% of the population, majority who are women, right? Yeah. Even that, it's not automatic that because we have 51% of the population who are women, they will automatically vote for her because
But don't also forget the conversation about the fact that we want a lot of women to be on the political field and also participate. Let me bring in Parker Wilson, who is live at the NDC headquarters. And Parker, can you confirm to us the nomination of former Education Minister Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman as the running mates for John Mahama?
That the party has accepted the nomination of Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman as the running mate to partner former President John Dramani Mahama into the December polls. And so the former president left here a while ago. The National Communications Officer of the party, Sami Jemfi, addressed the media briefly, just telling us that the National Executive Committee has accepted the nomination and that very soon the party will issue an official statement and let us know the decision behind the acceptance of Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman as the running mate. George Ado is the national youth organizer of the party. Let me just get a quick word from him briefly. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We know that your party has accepted the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. Big question is, what does she bring on board as a running mate?
Integrity and dignity to the office of the number two. Her Her integrity is impeccable, her dignity and what she carries, the air around her. She's an achiever. She's the first female vice chancellor in this country. She was very successful as Minister of Education. We saw the kind of transformation she brought to the education ministry. Today, if free SH is possible, it's because of the numerous infrastructure she put across this country. That is how come today free SHS has become possible. She cuts teacher absenteeism. There's one area nobody seems to be paying attention to, but one of the key trump card Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman worked on. And also, we are a social democratic party. This is the time for us to establish those credentials. Our key partners are women. And women form about 60% of our total population. We've not just picked a woman, we've picked a woman with an impeccable academic record. A woman who is the first woman to become vice chancellor in this country. A woman who has achieved something. A woman who is transformational. And we all saw the transformations she brought to the education ministry. I can assure you that she is the one to do the trick for the NDC. And I can assure you that the Ghanaian youth, the Ghanaian woman is going to rally around this woman so that she restores dignity back to the office of the Vice President.
I mean, your critics say that clearly this is no match for the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Very charismatic, very enthusiastic. He has a lot of verve when he's speaking, understands the economic issue. And for you to choose a running mate who perhaps can't match Dr. Bawumia is a no-no for the NDC.
Unfortunately, Bawumia has not been our yardstick because we don't regard him and all the credentials we attribute to him doesn't speak to the facts on the ground. As we speak today, what is the state of the Ghanaian economy? We don't eat credentials. With all the credentials that Bawumia came around with, what has he been able to achieve? Nothing. What is the state of the Ghanaian economy? Bawumia is not the yardstick. We did not choose our running mate based on Mahmoud Bawumia because for us in the NDC, Mahmoud Bawumia is nothing to write home of.
And is your running mate very charismatic because Ghanaians need enthusiastic and charismatic people? I remember when you chose your running mate, the late Mr. Arthur. I mean, people raised concerns about him being slow talker and doesn't have any charisma.
Mr. Arthur won the elections with President Mahama in 2012. Remember that. President Mahama is the candidate on the ballot. Charismatic does not translate into effectiveness. Madam Nana Opoku-Agyeman is charismatic in her own words. She transformed UCC. She brought a lot of transformation to the education ministry. I can assure you that she is what the NDC wants. She is what we need, and she's the lady we are taking back to the Flagstaff.
And you are convinced that partnering John Dramani Mahama would advance the electoral fortune?
Mind you, John Mahama himself is a brand. What Professor Jane is bringing on board is that dignity and integrity that she's bringing to the presidency. And that is the partnership that will take the NDC where we want to get to.
Thank you very much. Jodo Payado is the national youth organizer of the opposition NDC and very confident. Of course, I heard Sam George earlier and he's not here. Sam George is a member of parliament for Ningo Pram Pram. And even before the party came to announce to us that they have accepted the nomination of the running mate, he was very confident that the party would accept the nomination of Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman as the running mate. Honorable, first of all, many concerns have been raised about your running mate not being charismatic, doesn't have the verve, and also not bringing much on the table as a former vice chancellor, of course, a former education minister. For you, what is she bringing on board?
That's a very myopic position for anybody to take. The office of vice president is not one of a motivational speaker, that you need charisma. The office of vice president is one that is supposed to deliver on the visions of the flag bearer. And Professor Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman brings a set of skills that include honesty, integrity, and delivering on tasks that have been given to her. She's an achiever. Those are qualities that have been missing in the office of the Vice President since the 7th of January 2017. Someone rightly said that we are bringing the office of the Vice President we are taking it away from the national a comedy of jokes to the Flagstaff House where it's going to be serious business. Professor Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman is bringing back some respect to the office of Vice President when, God willing, she takes office on 7th of January 2021. Her track record as Vice Chancellor of University of Cape Coast, her track record as a lecturer, her track record as the chair of several institutions including Graphic Group, her track record as Minister for Education is what she's bringing to that job. A track record of achievement, a track record of delivering. Dr. Bawumia cannot be the yardstick. I find it disgusting, to say the least, when people want to say that this is going to be a contest between she and Dr. Bawumia. Dr. Bawumia is not fit to lace her shoes. Dr. Bawumia has failed. He's been given 4 years to serve. He's failed so much that his own government and his own president have passed a vote of no confidence in him. His primary duty as head of the economic management team was to manage the depreciation of the city. He came and bragged on your network when he was given a 100-day opportunity to say that he had arrested the dollar and handed the keys over to the IGP. Well, today the dollar has broken jail and is dancing Azonto on his bald head. A forex management committee has been set up, a 44-member committee, and he didn't even qualify to make selection. What is the city today against the dollar as against when he made that comment? The man has failed. So you cannot compare someone who's failed so classically and has engaged in jocular politics and is the butt of many jokes when it comes to dishonesty in this country, and compare such a person to a woman of integrity, a woman of proven track record, as Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. She's coming to salvage the integrity and image of that office. I mean,
and there are those who are saying that the NDC clearly wants to play the gender card. I mean, was there a factor, in considering the nomination of the running mate? Why?
Did anybody stop the MPP from appointing a woman? President Akufo-Addo does not believe in women empowerment. He had an opportunity to appoint Hawa Yakubu, the late. What did he do? He chickened out. He could not stand for women. He backed down upon the pressure from his own party, and that tells you the character of the man. When he went recently to the women conference in was it Canada or so, you heard his comments. He became the butt of international jokes, where he had to be schooled by a gender activist on what it is that the role of women is. He does not believe that women are ready today. President Mahama believes that the time for women is now, and if he is putting his mouth and his money where his heart is, do you blame us for that? Should we wait for President Akufo-Addo or any other political leader to come to believe in the capacity of women? We believe that this is the time for women and young people. Look, and the NDC is a trailblazing party. We gave youth and young people the opportunity way before the NPP did. The NPP has followed suit. They've learned from us. Now we are blazing another trail with women. Tomorrow they will follow suit. But we are always trailblazers.
And finally, for me, we picked up information that some of the executive and the Council of Elders were opposing the nomination, and that she wouldn't enjoy the needed support from the core grassroots members. I mean, for you, what's your view on that?
I'm challenging you or anybody who is peddling that falsehood to name one member of the Council of Elders who was opposed to her candidature. Look, there was supposed to be a meeting of the Council of Elders. Our Council of Elders are made up of people mostly in their 70s and even some in their 80s. Given the situation that we are under, the COVID situation, it will be heartless for anyone to seek to bring such elderly statesmen together and congregate them at such a time. And so the national executives, together with the flag bearer, took a sensible position that the flag bearer should take advantage of technology. He spoke to the chairman of the Council of State, the acting chairman of the Council of Elders, Alhaji Muhammad Idrisu, who agreed that technology should be employed. The flag bearer spoke with every single member of the Council of Elders, and they gave their overwhelming support, with the exception of 4 people. 4 people who he could not reach on phone. He could not reach on phone because their phones were either off or they did not pick at the time he called. He reported back to the chairman of the Council of Elders, who also did his verification and gave his blessings. So they did not meet because of the peculiar situations we are in. But there was a virtual meeting, there was a virtual approval given by all the members, all but 4 of the members, and those 4 members, it was not that they disapproved, but simply because they could not be reached at the time they were called. And so I'm challenging anybody who is peddling this falsehood, this wicked lie from the pit of hell, to establish to us who on the Council of Elders disagreed, or on the National Executive disagreed with the decision. I am a member of NEC. I just sat in the NEC meeting. The motion to accept the nomination as made by the flag bearer was moved by the indefatigable minority leader, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, and was seconded by the Central Regional Women Organizer. And it was a unanimous acceptance of his position and of his nomination, and she enjoys the full support of the rank and file of the party.
Now, it appears your ticket is set. I mean, John Mahama is set. What next should we expect from the NDC going forward, now that you have a running?
We had the People's Flag Bearer. Now, we have almost finished with the People's Manifesto is completed. It's been handed over to the flag bearer. Now you have the People's...
When are you launching the manifesto?
You have the People's Running Mate. The People's Manifesto will be launched in a couple of weeks. Before the end of August, I am confident that the People's Manifesto will be launched, and that will open and commence the People's Campaign. Already the People's Campaign has started with the numbers of people who have come out to register. They are doing this on the back of the advice that Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, the Asante Hene gave. He said, "Yedi ebufu ni ekom." Betu Abano. We will use anger and hunger at the failings of this government to vote them out.
Thank you very much. Sam George is a member of parliament for Ningo Pram there. And as you can see, quite a number of party supporters here. And a lot of them are excited and are throwing their weight behind the running mate, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, to partner John Dramani Mahama into the December poll. So it's official that the NDC now has a running mate, and it's in the person of Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. So we are still monitoring the situation. The executive, the chairman, the general secretary are still locked up in the meeting. I'm told that they'll wrap up very soon, and then, of course, we'll get a word or two from them when they are done.
It's my colleague, Parker Wilson, at the NDC headquarters with some details of Professor Opoku-Agyeman being nominated as running mate for the NDC. Head of political desk for JoyNews, Evans Mensah, is still here with me. But Evans, aside her political acumen, which people say may not match that of Dr. Bawumia, she wields lots of experience, especially in education. Some say that could better the fortunes of the NDC. You just heard some members of the party describe her as her integrity is intact. That could also help her in the 2020 elections.
First of all, I must say I'm shocked by the decision, and it's for good reason that there are definitely people within the Executive Council and the Council of Elders who may also have concerns, and I'm sure within the NDC people may have concerns with the decision, as we heard earlier. But it is John Mahama's decision. He's made it. He will win or lose based on this decision he's made. Now, a lot of calculations would have gone in, particularly what you said. This is what I call in politics, this is policy over politics. Now, the question is, going into an election, do you need politics over politics, policy over politics, or politics over policy? My argument is you need politics over policy. The policy becomes important when you win elections. The politics will win you the elections. If you lose elections, the policy doesn't matter.
Many say the dynamics are changing, Evans.
The middle class voters like me and you and etc. who like academics, we decide elections, true, in Ghana, right? But the NDC has a bigger problem going into 2020. And I insist, the biggest problem they have is to get their 1 million back. Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, she hasn't got the political acumen to galvanize and to campaign and to do all the things that you need, the ground game you need. Remember, the NDC is distinguished from the MPP. One of the key distinguishing features between the two is the NDC's grassroots masses appeal. The MPP is seen as more elitist, middle class people like them, etc. But the NDC's traditional core base has always been the masses, right? That is how they've won the elections often. So if you choose, then John Mahama, we know him. He's already done it, right? He's lost an election first as an incumbent president who lost an election. So going into an election such as this, for a party which DNA is already defined, we know how they win election. You have two people there, one of them, their own masses rejected in 2016. The key question you want to ask is, this is a John Mahama election, no doubt. It's a John Mahama who is going to be on the ballot, not Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. I get that. But the masses, the NDC foot soldiers and followers who did not show up to vote, rejected John Mahama in 2016. Key question to ask is, 4 years on, have they forgiven him to the point where they are willing now to come back with energy, vigor, and invigorated to vote for him in their masses? It's a key unknown. We need to find out. That's one. I concede that the performance of the current government could also be a motivation factor, right?
Yep.
But definitely, when you appoint or nominate or choose a running mate, he must compliment you. He must give you something you didn't have before. What he didn't have before.
She has education experience.
I'm saying to you that the masses, the NDC's masses, do they really, would they look and say, look, I'm looking at somebody who is academic, who is, is that what they want?
I mean, the point is,
that is a key question to ask.
With the NPP, they made use of Dr. Bawumia economic powers.
Bawumia lost 2 elections. He lost 2 elections.
He did.
He lost 2008. He lost 2012. He won 2016. But he was a brilliant economist. But he lost 2 elections. So competence alone doesn't cut it. If NDC is willing to lose 1 election and use that to build hair, that's fine. But that's not the game they are in. They are in this to win 2020. This is somebody you point if you're looking at a long game. But with 5 months on election, I really doubt if Nana Opoku-Agyeman is the best for this ticket right now. Now, it brings up the question, is it that, was she John Mahama's first choice? It's a question that will be asked.
Yeah.
Is it that the others who probably John Mahama was looking at really were not interested?
The names like Professor Kwesi Boche, Alex Moe,
etc. I mean, even Alex Moe will fall in the same category. I mean, he also hasn't got that, grand game gravitas.
Okay.
So, I mean, but Kwesi Boche and others. Some say Kwesi Boche is an old guard, but do not underestimate the work he did with the Kwesi Boche report. He went down there and interacted with the grassroots and did the report. He reintroduced himself to. But the question is whether he wanted it, right? I mean, so Jamal may like him, but if he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. And so is that what played in favor of Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman? I don't know, but this is my final point on this. Politics is about decisions. It's about choices.
Yeah.
He's made his choice. I say this is a major gamble. Thing with gamble, I don't know if you're a gambling woman. Thing with gambling is, if you fail spectacularly. But if you win, you also win handsomely. And December 7 will tell us. But all the evidence show now that this is a risk that the NDC will only live to discover its true outcome on December 8th or 9th or whatever it is.
We look forward to that. The Evans Mensah is head of political desk. But let's look at who Professor Jane Opoku-Agyeman is. She was born on November 22, 1951 in Cape Coast, Ghana. Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman attended Anglican Girls Secondary School at Akuforidua and a Presby Girls School. So then had her secondary education at the Wesley Girls High School in Cape Coast from 1964 to 1971. She completed her education, bachelor's in education in English and French at the University of Cape Coast in 1977 and obtained her master's and doctorate degrees from the York University in Toronto, Ontario, Canada in 1980 and in 1986, respectively. Professor Opoku-Agyeman taught and worked at the University of Cape Coast starting in 1986. She has held various academic positions, including head of the Department of English, Dean of Faculty of Art, Warden of Adeshe Hall, Valco Trust Fund, Postgraduate Hostel, and Dean of School of Graduate Studies and Research from 1997. She's held the position of Academic Director of the School of International Training in the History and Cultures of the African Diaspora. From 2008 to 2012, she was the university's Vice Chancellor. In March 2007, she was one of 5 scholars selected to deliver presentations during the 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. In October 2009, she was elected Ghana's representative to the Executive Board of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Ahead of the 2012 general elections, Jane Opoku-Agyeman moderated the debate with Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah. Between February 2013 and January 2017, she served as Education Minister of Ghana. On 26 October 2018, she became the Chancellor of the Women's University in Africa, located in Zimbabwe. And she has served on many local and international boards and committees, such as the Center for Democratic Governance, Ghana, the editorial board of the Harriet Tubman series on the African diaspora, World Press International USA, the Africa Initiative in Canada, and the College of Physicians and Surgeons as eminent citizen. And that is the woman behind John Mahama. We're still live on The Pulse, and we'll be back shortly with more. Welcome back on The Pulse. Remember, we are live on digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air. We're also live on GoTV channel 144 and DSTV channel 421. To the rest of our stories, an electoral commission says suspending the voter registration exercise now is not an option on the table. The commission says any move to do so will create a serious constitutional problem. This follows mounting of calls on the EC to suspend the exercise in the wake of the increasing numbers of COVID cases being recorded in the country. The latest call for a suspension is about 200 health professionals who have signed a chilling note to chairperson of the commission, Jean Mensah, warning her the continuous registration of voters could lead to thousands of coronavirus deaths and demand an immediate suspension of the exercise. Head of our health desk, Fred Smith, is joining me with details on that statement. Fred, what are the details of that statement?
Well, the health workers, numbering about 200, as you mentioned, they issued an open letter to the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. And in this open letter they sent to the EC boss, they had raised concern that with the registration exercise kicking off in about a week's time from that time, they were forecasting that people would not be able to observe the social distancing or the safety measures as announced by the health authorities. And therefore, they wanted the Electoral Commission to reconsider its decision to go ahead with the exercise. And you know, the Electoral Commission went ahead in spite of this warning by the health workers. Now, a week after that exercise, they say there's strong evidence on the ground that people are disregarding the safety protocols as announced by the health professionals. And they're saying that, for instance, there's one case where someone who knew was positive with COVID went to a polling station and decided to a registration center and decided to interact with other persons. And we know that person to be Carlos Ahenkra, the Deputy Minister of Trade, who had to resign. This, they say, is inimical to Ghana's fight against COVID-19, and therefore they are asking the Electoral Commission to now suspend the exercise that's ongoing. They also raise concern about the pressure this whole situation is putting on the health system in Ghana. They say, for instance, a number of their colleagues, and they put this figure in the hundreds, who have contracted the virus so far, and therefore they have been taken off duty, and so there's a shortage of staff. Meanwhile, our isolation centers and treatment centers are all full, and therefore it puts too much pressure on the health systems. They're saying that if they continue with the exercise, this will further worsen, and it will be difficult for us as a country to manage the situation. This is the reason why they're asking the Electoral Commission to immediately suspend the exercise. They give the Electoral Commission chairperson two options mainly. They're saying that she either suspends the process or the second part, continue with the process and be responsible for the thousands of deaths which they suspect will be lost as a result of a spike in cases in Ghana. And they say all of these deaths literally will be, the blood of these persons will be on the hands of the EC chairperson, Madam Jean Mensah.
Many thanks, Fred. And that was head of our health desk, Fred Smith. Well, Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Sribo Kwaku, says suspending the exercise is not an option available to the Commission now. He spoke on Newsfile.
The issue is that we have discussed the issue of compiling and not compiling, and we are convening beyond every reasonable doubt that we couldn't have used the current register. That's why we are compiling new ones, and the issue have been discussed, and those I don't need to go into that again. We have gone beyond that stage.
And meanwhile, the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission, Michael Boydu, says a little over 2 million Ghanaians registered during the first phase of the voters' registration exercise. In an interview with Maxwell Agbagba at the Red Church Registration Center, Mr. Boydu urged applicants to adhere to the safety protocols.
And we're here at the Red Church Registration Center. What I can say confidently is that This registration center, we've seen some semblance of social distancing and the adherence to the COVID-19 health protocol. Quite different from what we saw sometime last week when we visited the Ododo-Diodio and the Blekuma South constituency. This is the second phase of the registration exercise, and it has started smoothly here at the Ridge Registration Center. But let's speak to Mr. Michael Boydu, who is the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission.
We have done very well. The turnout has been very impressive, and maybe I would say 85 to 90%. So, yes, but for some places where this social distancing has not been observed, largely the work itself, the technical aspect of the work has been excellent.
But how many people successfully registered in the first phase of the exercise?
Good. We're looking at about 2.2 million.
Wow. Yeah. 2.2 million as at the end of the fifth day, or
after the end of the fifth day, it's about 1.8. But considering the fact that every day we get between 350,000 to 400,000, if you add that, because we are yet to add that of the 6th day, we're likely to get 2.2 million for the first phase. And may I even add that out of these 2.2 million, those who registered using the NIA are about 64%.
Wow.
Yes, and those who registered using the guarantees, about 33. Just about 3% use passports. So that's the breakdown. So it means that people really have access to their Ghana card.
An argument that was made for a new voters register was the inclusion of the facial recognition, feature. How is that going?
When the information is taken, it's keyed on the laptop, then your fingerprint is captured using the scanner.
Okay.
Good. After which your photographs will be taken using the camera. That is where the facial recognition takes place.
Okay.
Good. Once we capture you with this camera, your data will be stored on the DVD.
Okay.
The DVD is not here. That's what we're going to use for the election. Good. It will be stored on there. So during election, when you come and you place your finger on the DVD and its face will recognize you, then there's a camera on the DVD. The new one that we are procuring, there's a camera. We take your picture instantly there, and it compares with the picture that we are taking now.
Okay.
It's already on the system. They will match. They will compare. So when there is a match, then it proves that you are the person. Then your identity is guaranteed.
Let's now head to the Bono East region and specifically to the Techiman South constituency, where military personnel have been deployed at registration centers to ensure registrants observe social distancing protocols. Correspondent Anas Sabit joins us via Zoom with details. Anas, we understand there was a scuffle. Tell us what happened.
Yes, Gifty. In fact, the phase 2 started this morning. And here in the Bono East region, like I reported throughout last week, the exercise has been entirely calm and peaceful, with all safety protocols being adhered to, with the exception of the social distancing protocols. This morning also, we went to the various registration centers. I was there as early as 7:30, and I met the exercise already ongoing. But in some areas, I realized there were a bit of scuffles, like you said, misunderstandings, as in who goes first in the queue. So that is where the issues were. And in fact, it is expected, because these areas that are having their exercise today, the Hausa-Line electoral area, the Dagomba-Line electoral area, and some of these areas are densely populated. And so this is expected. So there were a lot of misunderstandings with regards to who is going to go first compared to the others. So that is where the deployment of security agencies was needful, and we saw them in their numbers coming in to ensure that there is peace at the registration centers. There was a big issue, or the biggest issue with what I've observed today had to do with the adherence to the social distancing protocols, and the intervention, the timely intervention of the military saved the day, as their presence at the registration centers ensured that people who were initially ignoring or neglecting those protocols had to observe it. And I've seen them go and come a number of times. So if you decide to do things the way you want, you have no idea when they're going to get back. And their presence, in fact, saved the day from.
So generally, it's been peaceful. The process has been, the comportment has been there, and people have adhered to the social distancing protocols. That's what you're saying.
Yes, the presence of the military, like I said, made that particular protocol something that is being observed. In fact, apart from that, the other safety protocols, the washing of the hands with water, soap and the running water, that is being seen in all the areas I have visited, because the EC have provided Veronica buckets and all the tissue, soap, etc. They also have in place officials from the Ghana Health Service at all the reception centers I have visited from day one, who are taking temperatures of the registrants. And there is also the provision of canopies and chairs to cater for those who are getting to the center. I mean, those who are almost about taking their pictures. But the issue had to do with those who gets in there a bit late and would have no chairs to sit. Those standing by, those were where the problems were initially. But the military, in fact, I must say, their presence actually saved the day, and the situation has been very calm.
Has the presence of the military not intimidated any of the people participating in the exercise? I mean, at least have they told you anything like that?
Not really. At the point, I heard people, in fact, applauding the presence of the military, especially those who feel they were there a bit earlier, and others would want to come in and then bypass them. A lot of people in the queue at the point were complaining that they got there as early as 5 a.m., but some would come in at a later period and they want to go before them. And these people were full of praise to the military, and they applauded the presence of the military and would want the military to, in fact, come in from time to time. I've also communicated with some of the returning officers, those in charge of the electoral process or the registration process, and they tell me the presence of the military, in fact, made their work easier. The good news is that the military are not stationed at one particular registration center, so their presence would feel will be a source of intimidation to the people. They come in and observe the situation, and if there are scuffles or misunderstandings, they ensure that things are right, and they move to the next spot. And this has been what they've been doing all day from my monitoring of the exercise here in the Techiman South constituency.
I'm grateful for the update. Anas Sabit is our correspondent in the Bono region. Now to the Volta region now, where some 14 persons who allegedly entered Ghana illegally to apply for the voters' identification card were arrested by police in the Kwatori district. A team led by the Volta Regional MPP chairman Makafui Wenya intercepted the Hyundai van with registration number GR3224 conveying the suspects. The suspects were eventually bailed following an intervention by the NDC officials there. Here's Whole West MP Emmanuel Bejra.
I don't think there's any intimidation, but I want to assure all Votarians, especially the good and loving and peace-loving people of Volta region, that they should not be afraid at all. This is just a way of our opponent intimidating and making us to coil back and not to register. One of the things that do not sound well to me is that all the people who are coming, they are coming from the MP's hometown. Look at this old man, W01. Christian Agbeviade, who has served in the Ghana military service, I mean, who unfortunately has gone blind, will be arrested by his own kinsman, that he's a Togolese, who was going to do his normal duty in a bus. There's no law in this country that forbids any citizen to move around or do anything. So people should not be afraid at all. They should go around, especially those who have to register, who have not yet registered. They should go around in town and register for the second phase tomorrow.
And to the Ashanti region, where the Kumasi Metropolitan COVID-19 team is drawing attention to inadequate shelter at registration centers, which officials say is a contributing factor to breach of social distancing. Chairman advisor Dr. Ernest Kwaku observes prospective applicants are compelled to congregate under trees and their buildings for shade without regard to the protocol. He tells JoyNews provision of more canopies will be crucial in addressing the challenge as the exercise enters the second phase.
The applicants or prospective applicants are there to get to the inner perimeter and they are in a queue. That's when the difficulty comes. The physical distancing is difficult, especially when there's no provision for a shady area for them to wait in a queue or in a line. Then they tend to huddle themselves at any nearby location which are shade and therefore unable to physically distance. But what happens is that when we see that, we go around and see that, we talk to them, and then most of them then now try to distance themselves. Then the face mask, when they are in a queue or in a line before they come to the delineated area for registration, you will find that about 60% may have the mask but it's down their chin. But when you talk to them, then they put it back on. And let me use this opportunity to go through your media outlet and say that you need a face mask most when you are talking, singing, coughing or sneezing. So it should be on. Don't think that when you want to talk to somebody, the person may not hear you clearly, so you are doing the face mask. Because it is at that time that the risk of droplets coming out of your mouth may be high. So use a mask when you are talking. Then when they get into the inner perimeter, most of the time the electoral officers will not even allow you not to wear your mask. So
let's talk more about COVID, because the WHO has revealed Ghana is one of the countries driving the increase in COVID-19 cases in Africa. According to WHO, 190,000 people are expected to die from the disease on the continent if the risk of exposure from persons who are infected to those who are not is not curtailed. The WHO's Technical Regional Officer for Africa, Dr. Mary Stephen, has been explaining why this is worrying in a virtual health forum on COVID-19, and she spoke on Prime Morning on the Joy Prime channel.
In Africa, we are seeing an increasing trend in the number of COVID-19 cases. 10 countries are driving this outbreak, and of course, we know that South Africa is reporting the highest number of cases, but Nigeria and Ghana are also part of these 10 countries. So we still see increasing number of daily cases on the continent, and if we don't ramp up our public health and those physical measures, we might continue to see additional number of cases on the continent. So basically, we need to ramp up all the capacities for detection, testing, isolation, treatment, and contact tracing, including the preventive measures by the community. So we all have a personal responsibility in addition to what government is doing to make sure that we do not expose more people to the risks of contracting COVID-19. Of course, if people continue to interact, no proper hand washing, they are not observing the 1 meter distance, they are not wearing their face masks, you expect that cases will continue to increase and doubling time will continue to shorten. And with this, we will continue to see increase in number of cases. So basically, we need to make sure that these capacities are on ground and unnecessary interaction is actually being avoided, or if it must be done, we must have facilities to make sure that we reduce the risk of exposure.
Dr. Stephen also dismisses the perception that the country is recording high number of cases because of increased testing.
The number of cases you see when you test depends on the kind of transmission pattern you have. So really, if you have community transmission, you will pick quite a number of cases when you test. And even if you do not test, for instance, we said earlier 20%, 15 will present with severe disease, and 5% will with critical illness. So you have 20%, which is quite a number of cases, especially in big countries. So they will present in the hospitals at the end of the day, or it will present as community death, which will be picked. So, but if you have a country that is reporting sporadic cases or cluster of cases, no matter how much you test, you will still not pick so many cases. So it actually depends on the kind of transmission you have in country.
What you're saying is that argument is moot.
So like I said, yes, it depends on the transmission. The number of cases you pick, it depends on the transmission pattern. So if you have community cases, you will pick more cases. Community transmission, you will pick more cases, definitely.
Dr. Mary Stephen represents the WHO in Ghana. Remember, we're still on the pulse, and we're also free to air because we are on DTT. When we return, there is more on the pulse. Welcome to the Pulse. To the rest of our stories, in government has today fought off claims it intends to remove Auditor General Daniel Domelevu from office. The accusation has been that Mr. Domelevu's probe of the controversial $1 million Kroll and Associates contract supervised by the senior minister has made government unhappy. Mr. Domelevu has since been asked by the presidency to proceed on leave for the next 167 days, raising suspicions of a grand plot that will see him removed. We'll hear from a deputy attorney general shortly, but first, the attorney's office is urging the Supreme Court to dismiss a case seeking to retrieve the $1 million government paid to private firm Kroll and Associates. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has more.
We're looking for is evidence that work has been done. That is one. Kroll and Associates is a foreign company. Article 181 of the Constitution, Clause 5, provides that it requires parliamentary approval.
Auditor General Daniel Domelevu issued a surcharge against the senior minister and other officials after he flagged the contract. Musician Kwame Asari-Obin is in the Apex Court asking that the firm refunds the $1 million. The court, in a related case on June 25, asked the Office of the Auditor General to inspect documents justifying the contract within 10 days. 2 days to the expiration of this deadline, Mr. Domelevu was asked to take his accumulated leave of 123 days, which was extended to 167 after he had questioned the legal basis for the directive. Fellow in public law and justice at the CDD, Professor Stephen Asari, says the presidency lacks the power to issue such a directive.
The president has no power to exercise any control, disciplinary, whatever, financial, administrative, managerial, none.
JoyNews has since cited a letter dated July 2, signed by the acting Auditor General Johnson Ekuamo Esiedu, expressing satisfaction with the inspection of documents as directed by the court. The Attorney General's office, meanwhile, says the contract signed with Kroll and Associates is not of the nature that requires parliamentary approval.
Deputy General Godfred Yabuadami says the president has the power to direct the Auditor General Daniel Domelevu to take his accumulated leave. He spoke on the Super Morning Show.
This whole theory about the Auditor General being a different category of public servant it's erroneous, it's wrong, it's misleading and must be rejected. And I think that the public ought to be educated properly.
So how about the EC chair? How about the EC chair?
So again, it brings up the issue whether the kind of independence as according to the EC chair is institutional independence or functional independence. And I'm saying that it is institutional independence. The EC chair, the search commissioner, the NCC boss, together with the Superior Court of Education, and the judiciary, they are all institutional independence.
So they can all be asked to go on leave by the president?
No, definitely not. No, I don't think so at all. That's fine. I don't think so at all. And I think that it has to be distinguished from this kind of independence as we given to Auditor General. The kind of independence given to Auditor General here is functional independence, independent performance of its function. That is all. That's where it ends. And I think it must be seen as such. And that is, otherwise it will be ridiculous to say that yes, the person has institutional independence, but at the same time is a regular public service officer. So if you want to respect the decision of the Supreme Court, which is that the Office of Auditor General is a regular public service office, then any argument that it has institutional independence will be thrown out of the window.
He also dismissed allegations of a plot to remove Mr. Domelevu.
That clearly is absurd, is very speculative and conjectural. Conjectural because the crew matter, that's what in court. It's all imagination. The crew matter, as far as I know, is in court. The Supreme Court had an aspect of it about 2 weeks ago. I think the parties have been ordered to actually go back to the High Court and continue with the hearing of the matter. So it is in court. It is suggested that the President took this decision just to avert the court hearing of the matter. And I think that it's very important that we respect the institutions of state. We allow the court to deal with the matter, and the court rules on the matter any way that it desires. That's it. It will be final.
And to other stories, posters of lawyer Philip Addison has gone viral on social media, indicating his intention to contest as an independent parliamentary candidate in the Ekwapim North constituency in the Eastern region. This follows his failed attempt at the recent NPP primaries to represent the party in the upcoming parliamentary elections. Maxwell Kudeko has been monitoring the situation, and he joins us via phone with more on this development. So when did these posters pop up?
The constituents saw the posters in the constituency on Sunday early morning. So it is assumed that the people started pasting the posters on Sunday dawn. So by morning, when everybody was awake, the posters were all over the constituency. The poster has two swords crossed in a circle, in a blue circle, with the inscription "The People's Choice," and it has the lawyer Philip Addison's photo, indicated that people should vote for him as independent candidate for the Ekwapim South constituency. And it's also written beneath boldly, "The People's Choice." So the posters are seen in some of the major towns in the constituency, namely Obosumasi, Tutu, Mampong, Manfin, Ekropon Latter, and other parts of the constituency.
So, I mean, what's the mood of the constituents? This, I'm sure, a number of people have seen this, and what's their reaction?
Well, there's been mixed reaction in the constituency, in the sense that people are arguing that the history of the constituency has it that no independent candidate has emerged and, as it were, made it through to Parliament since the 1992. The recent independent candidate the constituency had was one Mr. Esiedu Ofe, who is an assembly member, and he was a presiding member of the Ekwapim North Municipal Assembly. He contested as independent candidate in the last election. He secured over 9,000 votes, even though if you would want to do a critical analysis of that person, he has lived in the constituency for a very long time. He lives in the constituency and works in Accra and in Tema. The argument is that even though he's that popular and visible in the constituency, he couldn't make it. So some people are arguing that this is just a mere show to distract the vote or reduce the voting pattern, especially in the parliament elections within a constituency. Others too believe that maybe Addison will pull a surprise. But I've been talking to some leading members of Lawyer Addison's campaign in the Ekwapim North constituency. Dr. Adudankwa is a spokesperson for Lawyer Addison's campaign in the constituency. He tells me that the posters is not coming from Lawyer Philip Addison's camp. However, they have seen the posters all over town. He says that there are some pressure groups in the constituency who have been pressuring Lawyer Addison to contest independent because they feel that he was ill-treated or he was ill-treated within the MPP rank. So some certain youth groups in the constituency are behind the poster. He said in no time Lawyer Addison would make public statement on whether or not he will contest as independent candidate or otherwise. So basically he's trying to tell us that the process is not coming from them, but Lawyer Addison is not ruling out the choice or as it were the otherwise of contesting as independent candidates in the constituency.
The NPP must be worried. Has this gotten to the notice of the party's leadership? What have they been telling you?
Well, precisely. I had a conversation with some members of the MPP, Krapi North constituency executives, and then as well as the regional secretary, that's the regional secretary of the party. The constituency, people are saying that, oh, this one is one of those panic reaction stuff that the man is just trying to test the waters, and that the constituency remain focused and formidable, and they will work perfectly to make sure that the MPP candidate, who is the Deputy Minister of Information, Nana Amado Kwesiama, would retain the seat. Now, the regional secretary tells me that the region is not going to accept any aggrieved aspirant who will, as it were, want to contest as independent candidate. He says before the primary started, all aspirants were made to sign an agreement to the effect that they would not contest as independent candidate in case they feel that they were not treated fairly in the process, that they will be binded by the decision of the vetting committee, the decision of the process. So he says that in the first place, there's a legal agreement prohibiting any aggrieved aspirant from contesting as independent. So they're arguing that they will have to resort to court to get a court order restraining Lawyer Addison or any other person who wish to contest as independent candidate. Secondly, anybody who flouts that law or that agreement and then contests as independent candidate automatically forfeit his or her membership in the MPP. But most importantly, Mr. Jeff Kunadu said that there is a committee that has been commissioned by the regional executives to move around the constituencies and then rally all the aggrieved aspirants to come on board and then also ensure that they have a successful campaign. However, as I said, the spokesperson of Addison tells me that Addison is not too happy with the development of the party. He believes that the party didn't treat him fairly. He was disqualified unjustly, and then he petitioned the National Appeals Committee. And as of now, they've not received any official communication from the Appeals Committee or the party justifying his disqualification. So they are still waiting patiently from the only one disqualification from the primary. So it is not too clear whether Addison and his team would accept the party's threat to go to court to restrain them, or whether or not they will have to start for the party or whatever.
Keep monitoring events and update us on every minute on this matter. Maxwell Kudeko is our correspondent in the eastern region. Police in the northern region, however, has picked up one person in connection with the attempted rape and murder of one Abdul Halim in Tamale last week. According to the police, their intelligence led to the arrest of the suspect, Tahiru Mohammed, 35, and a resident of a Greek traffic light. The Northern Regional Crime Officer, Superintendent Kwabena Otwe Champon, who confirmed the issue, said the victim, Rashida, identified him as the one who shot her at an identification parade. And the Northern Regional Crime Officer, Superintendent Kwabena Otwe Champon, joins me on the line for more. What exactly happened and what really was the lead that led to the arrest of the suspect?
Yes, thank you so much, and good afternoon. As you recall that on the 1st of this month, there was a murder, as you reported, an attempted murder on the life of Rashida, a victim who is currently receiving treatment at the Tebele Teaching Hospital. So we have been following up leads and gathering intelligence. So the intelligence this yesterday night led to the arrest of this suspect. And earlier on, the victim who had given his statement to us on 1st of July had given description. She had earlier on indicated that she would be able to identify her assailant or attacker when seen, and she had also described the identity of the personality to us. So after the arrest of the suspect, we paraded about a dozen of photographs, including that of the suspect, and then we visited her at the hospital, and this process is in line with our service instruction 195. and then she was able to identify the suspect. Then the description that she gave in her statement on the 1st of July matches with the personality that has been arrested.
So what next now that the suspect has been arrested?
Yes, we are putting him before court tomorrow for further action.
And how's the victim doing?
She is very, very, doing well. When I visited her, she has just returned from the theater, and she's responding very well to treatment. I'm
grateful for your time on The Pulse this afternoon. We're still live on The Pulse. Now let's get on to our documentary series. In the first part, we told you about the various policies government over the years outlined to help in the fight against illegal fishing. These included bringing on board fishing observers to serve as frontline defenders against an overfishing crisis. Guess what? It's exactly 1 year since one fishing observer, Emmanuel Asen, was declared missing at sea without a trace. A year on, his family says it is yet to receive the outcome of the investigation. All these compelling details are in our latest Hotline documentary.
The European Union in 2014 placed a ban on the export of fish from Ghana to Europe. This, among other things, was related to the illegal, unregulated and unreported cases, also known as the IUUs. This action led government in 2015 to launch the Fisheries Management Plan to provide a strategic framework for reversing the declining trend of fish resources. But even then, there's been little or no improvement in the sector, and less than 10% of the plan has been implemented.
The 2020 deadline we gave, it could be plus or minus. So let's pray that it is +2 years and not minus 1 or 2 years. At least we still see cycle fish, which means there are some mature ones who have been reproducing. Yeah. I captured this last week.
Just last week.
And last Friday, I ate cycle fish. You know, who has stopped?
Exactly.
And we are deceiving ourselves to our own future detriment. Why? Why do we do that?
The observers were supposed to be the eye of the law enforcers at sea. Their job is to report and record activities of illegal fishing on the trawlers. But despite the presence of these observers, the fish store continues to deplete. Today, Mr. Kote sits at the beach wondering where to get money to feed his family in the coming days.
Agbene ingande ncheni miungele yo le yele nyomo tomo 200 million ne gashkane wonye wope na agbene won ya wu abo na ya le no ni gbejian no to ba no na o like fishing trawlers na me on show yen ame momolo ame ba shipon na me ba gbe olo ni kan ba gbe lo kan me gbe na e ka ni wo ho e ka me shige me e ka me te wen lo bi an to ne fishing trawlers ama me gbe owo.
Research conducted by EFG in 2017 revealed that approximately 100,000 tons of fish were landed through cycle, out of the total 167,000. What this means is that just 40% of catches were landed legally and reported to the Fisheries Commission, despite observers being present on a number of vessels.
We'll take a break on The Pulse. We'll return with more. Welcome back to The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We're live on digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air. We're also live on GoTV channel 144 and DSTV channel 421. To other stories, farmers in the Agogo township in the Ashanti region have registered their displeasure over attempts by some persons to bring back nomadic herdsmen into the town. It will be recalled that not so long ago, there were reports of nomadic herdsmen using farmlands as grazing grounds for their cattle. According to the farmers who spoke to JoyNews, farmers who tried to stop the herdsmen from using their farmlands as grazing grounds for their cattle were murdered. Kwabena Nimo, leader of concerned farmers in Agogo, said any attempt to allow nomadic herdsmen back into the community will be heavily resisted.
We, the farmers in Agogo, would not allow our lands to be taken from us. Through this job, many residents have enrolled their children in school, while some have built their own houses. We, the Concerned Farmers Association, will resist any attempt by anyone to take our lands from us.
Concerned Association farmers,
the Upper East Region Security Council has deployed military personnel to calm tensions in the Kasina-Nankana municipality of the Upper East region. It follows clashes that had led to the murder of a 75-year-old man. Though the cause of the clash has not been confirmed, residents claim the dispute between the communities of Kandiga and Doba are over the siting of a police post on the piece of land there. Upper East Regional correspondent Albert Story has more in the following report read to you.
On Friday, a 75-year-old man was murdered in his house at Kadinga, Apimpingo, by some yet to be identified assailants. Some other persons are said to have been inflicted with cutlass wounds, and a number of houses set on fire in what is believed to be related to a land dispute. The daughter of the deceased narrates what happened.
When they were, this afternoon that they started. So when they came, they were shooting here, this house, and they were hiding there, but the children left. So where he was hiding is where they were going to burn. So when they were inside the house, he was trying to escape to burn. And then when he tried to escape, to run away, then they went and cutlass him down there.
Meanwhile, police have been to the scene and are currently investigating the incident. Here is ASP Kingsley Ada, Navrongo District Police Crime Officer.
That somebody has been murdered in his house at this place. What was the name of the place? Abepingo. Abepingo, yeah. Abepingo. So we also have to proceed to the scene for our investigations, and that's why we are here.
Is it a case of a new clash?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I think that is the case. Because not quite long ago, somebody was also murdered around this area. A 75-year-old man was murdered around here. So it is not surprising. This has come as a renewed clash. Yeah.
How long was that when the first one was made?
So far, we are still putting the pieces together. We also just heard of it and came. So we have to put our investigative machinery in place.
So putting the pieces together.
We need to get information. We need to get information from people staying around. Yeah.
But the youth of Kadinga are accusing the military of failing to protect them. JoyNews is also learning that the assemblyman for Kadinga, where the murder took place, is assisting with investigations. Albert Sori, reporting for JoyNews.
Concerned drivers and True Drivers Union are threatening to invoke curses on regulators of the commercial transport sector if they are not allowed to increase fares by close of the day. According to them, adhering to the social distancing protocols has collapsed their business since fuel prices have also not been reduced. In an interview with JoyNews, Ashanti Regional Secretary of the Concerned Drivers Union, Nana Boache, called for a price reduction in petroleum products. He says in the absence of that, they should be allowed to take their normal number of passengers. National Chairman of the Concerned Drivers Union, Pawili, also accused government of intentionally collapsing the commercial transport business.
President Akufo-Addo wants to collapse our business. We, the drivers, have suffered for the past years under his government. We do not like the way President Akufo-Addo is treating us. Car owners are taking their vehicles from us. Government continues to increase fuel prices without commensurate increase in lorry fares.
About 15 cedi.
If government refuses to reduce petrol prices by Wednesday, lorry fares will go up by 30%.
He also called on the members to go and register in the ongoing voter registration exercise so they can vote against the NPP government.
All our roads have deteriorated. Spare parts from Abosokai are very expensive and we cannot afford. I'm using this platform to urge all drivers to register in the ongoing voter registration exercise. Those who do not have Ghana cards and passports should let us know. Anywhere you are, we will ensure we guarantee for you to register, so to make your voice heard in this year's elections.
And that's how we wrap up the Pulse this afternoon. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching, and I've indeed enjoyed my almost 2 hours stay with you.